This is Zara Recaps. Today, Zara Recaps is going to explain thriller, sci-fi, and adventure movie called Mission on Mars. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The opening scene shows a farewell party taking place at the home of an astronaut named Luke Graham. He is celebrating his upcoming journey to Mars. All of his loved ones and acquaintances are present to bid him goodbye. One of his colleagues named Jim McConnell, who had been preparing for the same mission, is sadly unable to join Luke due to the recent death of his wife. The scene then jumps ahead by 13 months, where Luke and his fellow astronauts have successfully landed on Mars. Meanwhile, Luke's other colleagues, including Jim, are watching on at the World Space Station's command center, maintaining communication with the crew. Shortly after the arrival on Mars, the team comes across a strange, bright structure. They suspect that this formation may be an outgrowth originating from an underground geothermal water column, which could prove valuable for future human colonization plans. As a result, they communicate this discovery to the command center and then proceed to the formation to conduct further investigation. As they step out of their spacecraft, the astronauts hear an unusual sound, but they dismiss it as interference coming from their robots. They continue walking and soon encounter a towering structure that resembles a mountain. The crew checks on their radar and learns that it is metallic. Following this, they decide to enhance the radar power, prompting the sand beneath their feet to shift. For the first few seconds, the crew does not pay much attention to this phenomenon and continues to record the unexpected transformation in their device. But just then, a massive vortex suddenly appears out of nowhere and launches an unexpected attack on the astronauts. This sadly results in the demise of everyone except Luke. And that's not even all. The vortex releases an immensely powerful electromagnetic pulse that severely damages the spacecraft's electronic equipment. Once everything settles down, the formation finally reveals itself. It is an enormous humanoid face, indicating that Mars was once inhabited by Homo sapiens. Meanwhile, a shocked and injured Luke somehow manages to transmit a message to the World Space Station. Upon receiving this transmission, Jim becomes worried and approaches his superior, Ray. He suggests that they promptly organize a rescue mission. However, Ray is skeptical about the idea as they aren't even sure what's lurking on Mars. Perhaps Luke may not survive the night after all. Ray also distrusts Jim due to his withdrawal from the previous mission. Hearing all this, one of the astronauts present in the room, Woody Blake, comes forward and defends Jim. He says that the poor guy was only caring for his ill wife, and that is something every husband would prioritize. Moreover, Jim and his wife were the primary architects of the Mars mission, which makes him the most knowledgeable about the planet. This argument finally convinces Ray, and as a result, a rescue spacecraft, comprising a team of 4 individuals, sets off for Mars. The crew members are Woody, his wife, Terry Fisher, Jim, and a technician named Phil Olmere. The primary objective of the mission is to investigate the tragic events and secure the safe return of Luke. As they approach Mars orbit, they realize that the mysterious interference is still there. They also observe 3 burial mounds, which they presume to be the final resting places of their deceased crew members. Soon after, a magnetic storm sweeps across the planet, making visibility impossible for the astronauts. But despite this, Ray sends a video message granting them permission to land on Mars. Woody goes to share the news to Jim, but to his surprise, the latter is watching a family movie, reminiscing about the cherished moments with his late wife. After this, the team begins the preparations to land on Mars. But as they are doing so, a swarm of small meteorites suddenly collides with their spaceship, resulting in damage to its hull and causing an injury to Phil's arm. This incident also results in an atmosphere leak. The crew swiftly responds by conducting repairing procedure, diligently searching for the source of the damage, but the breach is too small to be visually detected. It appears as if they are going to crash, but Terry comes up with an excellent idea. She squeezes a packet of juice, allowing it to float towards the breach and seep through, thereby identifying its location. With this, Woody prepares to suit up and ventures into outer space, using a liquid substance to repair the breach. The very incident puts Jim at the brink of asphyxiation, but he somehow manages to survive. Unbeknownst to the crew, the fuel tanks of their spacecraft have also been damaged due to the recent collision. As a result of this, when they ignite the main engines, the fuel leaks into space and explodes, resulting in the destruction of the spaceship. Hence, with no alternatives left, the crew is forced to suit up and make their way towards the resupply module that was left from the first mission. It appears to be orbiting Mars in close proximity. Unfortunately, the circumstances are not favorable for the crew, as the resupply module is orbiting slightly lower and at a faster pace than their spacecraft. Realizing that time is running out, Woody utilizes all the fuel in his rocket to propel himself towards the module. He manages to attach a tether to it, but loses his grip during the process, causing him to descend into the Martian atmosphere. Panicked, Terry disconnects her tether and goes after her husband. She is adamant on saving him at all costs, despite the rest of the crew saying it's dangerous. But just as she reaches a bit far, Woody selflessly removes his helmet, sacrificing himself to ensure her survival. Seeing this, Terry mourns for a while before returning to her friends. In the next scene, the crew finally reaches the Martian surface and begins repairing the Earth Return Vehicle, ERV, using the motherboards they brought with them. They also explore the first spaceship in which their former crew had arrived and discover that the living quarters are still intact. Jim heads to the greenhouse section and is astounded to find that all the plants are thriving. As he removes his helmet and catches a reflection in a water-filled bucket, he notices a figure holding an axe behind him. Jim quickly turns around, only to discover that it is Luke. The figure initially seems hostile, having been alone on this planet for months. But when Jim utters the names of his wife and son, he calms down. Luke appears to be affected by the isolation and the loss of his crew, causing him to exhibit some signs of mental strain. Nonetheless, he successfully communicates the discoveries made by his team to the rescuers, including the colossal humanoid face. He proceeds to share that during his solitary period, he tried his best to unravel the enigmatic nature of the structure. Luke then presents the rescuers with his most significant discovery, a recording capturing the distinctive noise heard in the vicinity of the formation. Through months of analysis, Luke has deciphered the sound as a three-dimensional representation of human-like DNA, intricately mapped on a spatial coordinate system. He speculates that it functions as a unique signature left by someone. After hours of research, Jim and his crew discover that the mysterious signals they've encountered are not just signatures but rather an interactive prompt. This prompt requires the input of a missing pair of chromosomes, essential for completing the human DNA sequence. Basically, it appears to be a test left behind by the creators, and the previous crew perished due to an incorrect response to it. Jim firmly believes that they must complete the sequence to pass this test. As a result, they deploy a rover to transmit the completed signal using radar. The plan succeeds, and an opening materializes on the side of the formation, emitting a strange, bright light. While Phil stays behind to repair the ERV, the remaining crew members decide to investigate further. As soon as they walk inside the formation, the entrance gets sealed, causing them to lose contact with Phil. Not long after, they realize that the atmosphere here is similar to that of Earth. So, they remove their helmets and start breathing normally. As they advance, they enter a vast, dimly lit chamber that astonishingly displays a three-dimensional representation of the solar system. The crew members are stunned by what they are witnessing. After all these years of hard work and research, they have finally confirmed the existence of aliens. Shortly after, a holographic figure resembling a Martian appears and begins silently explaining. It reveals that in the distant past, Mars was a thriving planet, with abundant life and water. However, that changed one day, when Mars was struck by a catastrophic asteroid, completely destroying its ecosystem. The surviving Martians were compelled to evacuate their home planet in search of new settlements. They also sent their own life forms to ancient Earth in the form of microscopic bacteria. Over billions of years, these life forms evolved into plants and animals. Eventually, humans emerged and began dominating planet Earth, fulfilling the Martians' long-held aspirations. This means that the present-day humans and all the other living organisms on Earth are actually the descendants of Mars. After the presentation ends, the holographic figure extends its hand to the astronauts, affirming that they belong to the same species. As the image of the Martian figure gradually fades away, it extends an invitation to one of the astronauts to explore their newfound planetary destinations. Meanwhile, Phil somehow contacts the crew and reveals that a deadly storm is coming their way. If they don't leave on time, they might become stranded or even die here. This concerns the crew, and they prepare to depart, but Jim declares his intention to stay. He has chosen to accompany the Martian on their journey to another galaxy. The rest of the crew members are left in utter shock, but they know that it is Jim's dream to tour the galaxy. Prior to their departure, Terry presents Jim with a rocket pendant that belonged to Woody, symbolizing their enduring friendship. Luke and Terry exit the formation, while Jim remains inside a cylindrical structure that undergoes a transformation into a capsule-like container. At last, he is gently lifted into outer space. Jim knows that from this point onward, his life is uncertain and that he is completely reliant on the Martians. However, since his wife's passing, he hasn't been quite the same either. Despite this, he's fulfilling his dream of exploring space, and if this is how he meets his end, it's the right way for him. At least he doesn't have to wait long to meet his wife. After a while, his capsule begins filling with a clear liquid, so Jim holds his breath for as long as possible. But at one moment, he yields to the urge for air and breathes. To his amazement, he can breathe within the liquid. This revelation brings a smile to Jim's face as he understands that he is experiencing an entirely new form of existence. Flooded with all the good memories of the past, he bids a final farewell to everyone. In the final scene, as the crew members are taking off, they notice Jim's Martian craft fly past them at a speed hundreds of times greater than their ERV. He embarks on a journey deep into the vast expanse of space. The movie concludes as the crew sends their best wishes to Jim, wishing him a safe journey ahead. Thanks for watching. Subscribe the channel to get more in action, thriller, sci-fi, and adventure movies recap.